Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life and welcome to the next Prisoner review. Now, in this video, I am going to be reviewing Prisoner Cell Block H, episode 11, Tragic Temper. Now, this is an amazing Prisoner episode. It's up there as one of my favorite episodes from the early years. So, as we all know, for the last 4 or 5 episodes, Frankie has been behaving herself and taking control of her violent temper, and she's basically doing it for her brother Gary. Now, Gary comes in to visit Frankie and he ends up telling her that he won't be able to visit her quite as often and not for a while because he's planning on going to work on a farm. Now, of course, he wants to save up some money to start his own farm for both him and Frankie. Little did we know that this would actually be the very last time that Frankie ever gets to see her brother, because later on in the episode, a telegram is delivered to the prison saying that Gary is in hospital and he's critical. Now, when Vera gives Frankie this telegram to read, Vera asks Frankie what does she want them to do about it, and Frankie just turns around and says, I don't know, nothing. And she just ends up storming off, shocking Vera. Now, of course, this is because Frankie, she can't read, but she's kept it on the low down, probably with fear of being teased by the other women, and probably even being teased by Vera. So Frankie pretends that she has something in her eye, and she gets Doreen to read out the telegram to her. Now, Doreen panics, and she basically just makes something up, but Doreen then goes into the rec room and tells B and Mum and the rest of the women about what's really going on. And before you know it, Frankie turns up at the rec room. And Karen, she ends up telling Frankie the truth. Now, she doesn't do it out of spite because, you know, Frankie and Karen, they haven't really been getting on very well lately. But Karen, she ends up telling Frankie the truth because it's the right thing to do. So when Karen tells Frankie what's happened, oh my god, Frankie goes absolutely nuclear. All of the women leg it out of the rec room and Frankie literally tears the whole room apart. She throws down the bookshelves, she throws tables and chairs through the air. She literally destroys the rec room. When Erica and the officers take Frankie to Erica's office to ring the hospital, Frankie ends up begging Erica to let her go to the hospital to see her brother, which Erica does end up allowing. Now, I've got to say, I was really feeling for Frankie at this point in the episode because her brother means everything to her and she looks proper broken. But when Frankie does make it to the hospital, it's too late. The doctor tells her that Gary died a few minutes ago, but he then goes on to say that if she had made it down sooner, then she would have been able to chat with him because he did regain consciousness. Now, I don't know what is going on here, and I just gotta say, where did this doctor get his people skills from? Talk about rubbing salt into the wounds, just as Frankie, you know, is being told that her brother is dead. This episode always makes me feel quite sad from here on in. I mean, there's a scene where Frankie is in her cell at night holding on to her brother's leather jacket, and she's remembering the last few times when she saw him, and it's just really, really sad, especially with the sad music that they're playing in the background. This leads us on to the mother of all cliffhangers, because Frankie, she ends up on the roof after she breaks the trap door, and I tell you what, guys, I was so shocked when I first saw this end of episode cliffhanger. I was not expecting Frankie to end up on the edge of Wentworth Detention Centre's roof. Karen is in the garden, she looks up and she's Frankie on the edge of the roof, and then Karen runs back towards the prison, leaving us on this huge cliffhanger, literally. I think this was definitely the biggest end of episode cliffhanger that the show had done since the Frankie Doyle riot. This is what I love about Prisoners sometimes. I mean, it's the fact that it's not really a predictable show. I know certain storylines in certain episodes it can be, but a lot of the time it does stay true to form and it shocks the audience every time on first watch. Vera was getting pretty nasty when her copper friend Graham, he was trying to get Vera to put pressure on Marilyn. So basically, Graham, he is basically after some of the big drug pushers' names, and Marilyn, she won't give him the names. So he ends up asking Vera to add some pressure onto Marilyn so that he can basically break her. I think this is the first time we really get to see the real tough side of Vera. There's a scene where the women are playing volleyball in the yard and Frankie ends up throwing the ball a little bit too hard at Marilyn. So Marilyn goes to throw the ball back at Frankie, but she ends up missing and ends up hitting Vera, which is actually an accident, but it was quite funny at the same time. Unfortunately, Vera then puts Marilyn into the pound for 2 days as a result, even though, like I said, it was an accident. How far is this one gonna go? Eddie still isn't interested in sorting things out with Marilyn. He pretty much tells Dr. Miller in this episode that he will never take Marilyn back. B was getting a little bit of backlash from the Helen Masters thing from the last episode, with some of the women not really happy with her, but thankfully this doesn't actually go on for too long and it doesn't actually lead onto anything too serious. What I liked about B in this episode is, even though Frankie and B, they don't like each other at all, I honestly felt that B was giving Frankie some slack after learning about her brother. I mean, when the women are in church, the Reverend reads out something from the Bible for Frankie and Frankie's brother, and B is standing there respectfully and she looks like she looks a bit sad and she really feels for Frankie. That's just my take on it, but I mean, B has been through this herself with daughter Debbie and it was all done in little subtle ways and I just kind of liked it. Now remember in my last review I said I was hoping that Lynn Warner was in for some happier times. Well, it doesn't actually look like his head hid that way. So Doug, the guy from the men's prison, is released and he comes to Lynn Warner's parents' house to see her. Now, Lynn tells Doug not to tell her parents that he has also been in prison. But when Lynn's mum finds a letter with the men's prison's address, they aren't best pleased, but they also don't want to lose Lynn now that they've just got it back recently. So Lynn's dad gets Doug to work on the farm, basically to earn his keep and prove to them that he is actually a decent human being. Seems pretty reasonable enough to me. Well, Doug and Lynn end up getting engaged in the most bizarre proposal that I've ever seen in my life. Doug then persuades Lynn to basically leave her family, leave her home, and go away with him to start a new life together, which she ends up doing. But before they do leave, Doug, he ends up helping himself to Lynn's parents' money in a cookie jar. Oh god, this is not gonna end well. And Lynn and Doug, they end up leaving the farm in secret. And I've just gotta say, I do feel this is all very rushed, the storyline. I mean, it's quite clear that the writers were eager to move Lynn on to another big storyline, which is no doubt going to land her back in prison at some point. It just seems very rushed to me, but I'm happy to roll with it. I mean, it is safe to say that Lynn isn't gonna get a happy ending, at least not at this stage. So this was a very full-on episode, lots happening, and the whole show feels like it's been sped up slightly with a lot of things happening, and obviously ending on a massive cliffhanger with Frankie on the roof. I do feel the writers have definitely upped their game in this episode after all of that Helen Masters rubbish previously. I do promise to never mention Helen Masters' name again after this. But all in all, a bloody brilliant episode. I can remember when I first saw it, I could not wait to see what was going to be happening next. I mean, these were before the days of YouTube where you can literally just binge watch the whole thing right now. But oh no, I watched Prisoner back in the day where you had to wait to see what happened next, and sometimes you'd be waiting up for a week. My favourite part of this episode has to be the moment where Frankie destroys the rec room. It's dramatic, epic and brilliant. My least favourite moment has to be the moment when Frankie gets to the hospital and then that doctor tells her that her brother has died. It always makes me feel really sad for Frankie. So that's all of my thoughts on this incredible, massive episode. Now I want to hear all of your thoughts. Were you guys shocked when you first saw this end of episode cliffhanger? What were your first initial thoughts when you saw it? What were you thinking when you saw Frankie standing on the edge of that roof? Did you think she was going to jump? jump or not? So let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. Okay then guys, well thank you all for watching this video today. There is another prisoner review just around the corner for you to all enjoy, so make sure you have that subscribe button turned on, and I will see you all again very, very soon.